the Bank of Canada has been on this, like, interest rate cutting spree 7 times in a row.
7 in a row.
So now everyone's wondering, what does this mean for actually affording a place in Vancouver? How is it affecting this already crazy market?
Yeah.
And then that big question, if you're thinking of buying, how do you choose between a variable or a fixed rate mortgage?
Right.
So we've got some expert opinions, and we're going to take a deep dive into what's going on with mortgages.
It's definitely a time where people are, really paying attention. And
That's right.
especially in a market like Vancouver, which is so sensitive to interest rate changes.
Yeah.
I mean, those 7 cuts, they've definitely shaken things up. And, the possibility of even more cuts just adds this whole other layer of complexity for anyone thinking about buying or selling.
For sure. So let's start with just like the right here, right now impact of these 7 rate cuts.
Okay.
Phil Soper, he's the president and CEO of Royal LePage.
Right.
And he's basically saying these cuts aren't just small tweaks. They're actually making it easier to afford homes across the entire country.
Interesting.
And he specifically mentioned Southern Ontario as an example.
Okay.
The thing that I thought was really interesting was his observation that borrowing costs have come down, but at the same time, salaries and wages have gone up. He said that combination is pretty rare. It's not something we've seen a lot over the last 50 years.
It's not often we hear anyone say housing is getting more affordable, especially these days.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Especially lately.
Right.
So that's like a huge shift.
Yep.
For
sure, that mix of cheaper borrowing and more income, it can open up doors for people who thought they could never get into the market.
Yeah.
It changes that whole affordability equation,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we also have to, factor in a bit of caution.
Right.
Michael Froese, who's a broker and managing partner with Royal LePage over in Winnipeg, he pointed out some of those broader economic uncertainties.
Okay.
He was talking about things like trade wars and tariffs,
Right.
and suggesting that those might make both buyers and sellers a little hesitant to jump in and make big investments this year.
So that's a really good point. Even if it's cheaper to borrow money, if people are nervous about the overall economy,
Exactly.
they might be a little hesitant to make a big purchase like a house.
They might just hold off for a bit, see what happens.
Right. But Froese also made the point that life keeps going.
Yeah, it did. Life doesn't stop for trade wars.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
People still need to move.
Exactly. He highlighted how those really fundamental life events, they just keep driving the housing market,
Yeah.
Things like starting a family or needing more space or getting a new job. Those things don't wait for the economy to sort itself out.
Totally.
So, some people might be more cautious, but there will still be people looking to buy or sell.
Exactly.
And let's not forget who benefits most from these rate cuts.
Yeah.
The people who are now able to buy because borrowing is cheaper, the homeowners who have variable rate mortgages.
Right.
And they're going to see their interest payments go down, and anyone who has a floating line of credit.
Okay, makes sense. So, yeah, definitely some good news for a lot of people.
Yeah.
But now let's focus on Vancouver specifically.
Okay.
We all know it's its own animal when it comes to real estate.
Unique market for sure.
I mean, the average home price back in November was over $1.185 million.
Wow.
That's just a whole other level of expensive.
Yeah, you're talking about a totally different stratosphere when it comes to affordability.
Absolutely.
Right.
So how did these national rate cuts actually play out in such a high-priced market?
Well, that massive average price is the key difference.
Okay.
In Vancouver, the mortgage loans that people need are just so much bigger than in a lot of other parts of Canada.
Right.
What that means is that even small drops in interest rates can lead to really big savings over time.
Wow.
Especially with a variable rate mortgage, if rates keep going down, like a lot of people are predicting.
Right.
But, and this is a big meeper, but for Vancouver buyers, that potential for savings comes with a lot of risk too.
Right.
If interest rates suddenly start going up again, you're exposed.
Yeah.
The sheer size of the mortgage in Vancouver means that any change in interest rates has a much bigger impact on your monthly budget.
So yeah, basically the stakes are just higher.
Way higher.
With those huge loan amounts. Okay, so let's look ahead.
Okay.
What's everyone saying about future interest rate moves?
Right.
The Bank of Canada has already cut rates 7 times, bringing the policy rate down to 2.75% as of March 12, 2025.
Yeah.
Where do we think things are going from here?
Well, the current prime rate, which is what variable mortgages are based on, is sitting at about 5.23%.
Okay.
And as you said, variable mortgage rates are usually offered at a discount to the prime rate. For example, when we were looking at this, RBC was offering prime minus 0.50%, which put their variable rate around 4.70%.
But
At the same time, the 5-year fixed mortgage rates were around 4.69% for people with a down payment of over 20%. Those are the conventional mortgages.
right.
And a little higher at 4.79% for high-ratio mortgages, where the down payment is less than 20%.
So basically, variable and fixed were almost the same at that point.
Almost a toss-up, yeah.
What about predictions? Are we
Yeah.
expecting more rate cuts?
Yeah, that seems to be the general consensus.
Okay.
The analysis we've seen suggests that the Bank of Canada might cut rates even further throughout 2025.
Okay.
They're talking about another 0.50% to 1% in total reductions, which could bring the policy interest rate down to somewhere between 2.25% and 2.75%. If that happens, we could see the prime rate drop to around 4.70%, and then variable mortgage rates could fall to about 4.28%, assuming lenders keep offering that same discount.
Okay, so we could be talking about a drop of 0.5 percentage point on variable rates.
Potentially.
And for a big mortgage in Vancouver, that could mean saving a ton of money over time.
It could.
Which brings us to the big question for anyone thinking of buying in Vancouver right now.
$1 million question.
Exactly. With all these rate cuts happening, and maybe more to come, how do you decide between a variable and a fixed rate mortgage?
Yeah, it really comes down to your own personal finances and how much risk you're comfortable with.
Okay.
Let's start with variable. If you think interest rates are going to keep going down like most people do, then a variable rate mortgage could be a really good option.
Yeah.
That potential drop from, say, 4.70% to 4.2% could mean lower monthly payments and big savings over the life of the mortgage. You're basically betting that rates will keep falling. But, and this is super important to remember, there's also the risk that if rates go up, your payments will go up too.
Yeah, you don't have that predictable payment with a variable rate.
Exactly.
Okay, so on the other side, we have the fixed rate mortgage. What makes that a good option right now?
Well, a fixed rate mortgage gives you exactly what it says, fixed payments.
Okay.
You know exactly what your monthly payments will be for the whole term of the mortgage, which is usually 5 years in Canada.
Yeah.
This is a much better option for people who don't like risk or people who have a really tight budget and need to know exactly how much they'll be paying each month.
Yeah, that makes sense.
With the current 5-year fixed rates around 4.69%, it gives you that peace of mind.
Right.
Also, a fixed rate mortgage can be better if you think you might sell your home in a few years.
Oh, okay. Why is that?
Well, the penalties for breaking a fixed rate mortgage are calculated differently and can sometimes be less than the penalties for breaking a variable rate mortgage.
Okay, interesting. So for someone in Vancouver's crazy housing market, what's the most important advice you would give them?
Well, Vancouver has really high prices and it's super competitive, so the mortgage decision is even more important there.
Yeah.
The potential savings with a variable rate mortgage could be huge if rates keep going down, but it's not the right choice for everyone.
Right.
It really depends on your finances, how comfortable you are with the idea of your payments changing, and how much risk you're willing to take.
So no easy answers. It really depends on the person.
Exactly.
What's the one thing that every Vancouver homebuyer should do?
Talk to a mortgage expert.
Okay.
They can look at your specific situation, understand your risk tolerance, and help you figure out what's best for you.
That makes sense. So
Yeah.
personalized advice is key.
Absolutely.
Okay, as we wrap up, what are the main takeaways for people who are watching these interest rate cuts and the Vancouver real estate market?
The main things to remember are that the rate cuts are making borrowing more affordable,
Yeah.
especially if you have a variable rate mortgage. And there might be even more cuts coming, which could mean even more savings, especially in Vancouver, where even small rate changes can make a big difference on those huge mortgages.
Right.
But fixed rate mortgages are still a good option if you want to know exactly what you'll be paying each month.
Exactly. And ultimately, the best choice between variable and fixed depends on the individual.
Absolutely. It comes down to your risk tolerance, your financial situation, and what your plans are for the future.
So before we go, I've got one last question for you.
Okay.
As you're thinking about all this stuff about interest rates and the Vancouver market, what's something non-financial that people should consider when choosing a mortgage?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
I think it's really important to think about your lifestyle in Vancouver and your long-term goals for living in the city.
Okay.
How does the mortgage fit into the bigger picture of your life in Vancouver? It's not just about the numbers.
Right. It's about the whole picture.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, this has been super insightful.
It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And to all of you listening, thanks for tuning into the deep dive. We'll catch you next time.
See you then.